collectively as a people in order to bring redemption. However, these collective things, because they're 2,000 years old, they don't always connect to us, especially people, right, that could have never foreseen the assimilation into secular society. How many people, how many children are coming back as Bali Tshuva, right? You're praying for Yerushalayim, you're praying for Israel, you're praying for all types of things. Who knows that you connect to any of those things? And how about your actual real dreams and your real difficulties and your real problems? This being taped right now? Okay, good. I'll tell you something very interesting about Hibodedut, okay? Many people think this is a chiddush of Rav Nachman, that he made up this whole concept. It's not brought down in Jewish law. You don't have to do it. So the Rambam, who is the codifier of all Sephardi Jewish law, he says, what did people do before the sages brought down the Amidah? Nobody prayed. Right? Didn't we learn about in the last parsha that when Rivka met Yitzchak, he was praying in the field? Right? And didn't we see that Abraham used to pray to Hashem and Yaakov used to pray? What were they doing? Hibodedut. Every single one of them was just talking to Hashem in their own language. We're going to speak in a moment about King David. David wrote Tehillim. What is Tehillim? It's all of his Hibodedut sessions. Every psalm is another one of his conversations that he had with Hashem, which he recorded for all time. So we see that in reality, Hibodedut is something we've been doing forever. All right, it sounds like a fancy term. It's really not. It's just to have a genuine, honest dialogue with Hashem alone. The Rambam says that what is prayer, the Amidah, why was it established? Because it replaces the Korbanot. Because we don't have the Beit HaMikdash, we can't do the sacrifices now. So instead of those 3 daily sacrifices, we offer prayers instead. But the Rambam says, don't be confused, because this doesn't replace the prayer that you're supposed to do anyway. So what is that prayer you're supposed to do anyway? It's just your conversation with Hashem. So how many of us are just talking to Hashem? And could you imagine that your whole entire life, Hashem is waiting to hear from you, and you never spoke to Him? Ever. So there's a lot of unleft potential, which we're going to speak about right now tonight. So this female dimension of speech, I want to show you something very interesting. It's really self-expression, right? What are you doing when you're speaking? You're expressing who you are. So you see that the essence of speech of the female is to express who they are. Now, if you look at our generation, you'll notice that there is an uptick in everybody's desire to express who they are. You see millions of people on social media are telling you, hey, I just went to the bathroom, right? And they send you an Instagram of safe, right? Why does anybody care? And it doesn't really matter, because this person is expressing himself. And for some reason, everybody around the world is obsessed with saying, this is who I am, with their clothing, with their bags, with their dresses, with their, I don't know, whatever you guys have. So all of these things, what's the whole point? And especially with social media, with Facebook and Instagram and all of these things, everybody is looking to show who they are. Where is this insatiable craving for showing who we are? Where was this for thousands of years? What, people didn't care? So actually the deep reason why is not because technology just happened to be created now in our generation and to really take off, and now everybody's using it, and it just happens to be that we created face. It's not that. They say that in the final generation before Mashiach comes, they've been saying this for thousands of years, one of the ways that you know for sure Mashiach is coming is when the female dimension of reality becomes very, very, very powerful, very strong. Not just within women, just period, within the creation. That's also within men, right? Rav Yitzhak Ginsburg, he says, what's one of the main reasons actually why people are starting to now experience more gender confusion than they ever have in the past, right? You never heard about this 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. So they said one of the reasons why many men are feeling like they're women is actually because the female dimension of their soul is becoming very strong. But because they don't know these teachings, they think that they are actually women, right? But you see this all over the world, that there is this desire to express the self. And this is actually, right before Mashiach comes, it's like this. Now, why is that? What is the reason that at the end of history, we need the female dimension to be strong before Mashiach can come. So, I'll tell you something very interesting. The Arizal, he is the most famous, greatest Kabbalist who ever lived. He talks a lot about the souls of Jewish people, reincarnations, Gilgulim, and he somehow knows all of the qualities of everybody's soul. So he said that King David, who is the antecedent, he is the person who Mashiach, his soul comes from, right? So he's going to be just like King David, but for us. So he says that King David's soul was completely female. Even though it was in a male body, David's soul was female, completely female. He said about Yitzchak Avinu, he was the only other one who also had a female soul. But then after the Akedah, he drew down a male soul. Which is why right after the Akedah, right, the binding of Yitzchak, you see right after that, he finds Rivka his wife. Because he wasn't capable of getting married prior to that, because he had a female soul. Okay? But David HaMelech, he had a female soul his whole life. So why does it matter that David had a female soul? And the reason is that's what makes him the king, and that's what allows Mashiach to conquer the world. It's because of his female soul. So why is that? What did David do? His whole life was bound up with self-expression. Every single day, he was crying out to Hashem, I'm suffering, I'm struggling, I'm sick, I'm tired, I'm this, I'm that, right? I need your help. I need you now. Are you ever going to help me? Where are you coming from? Right? When you pray to Hashem, are you praying like that? Do people pray like that? Right? When I teach people to pray like this, they say, well, I don't want to sound disrespectful. I don't want to sound like this. But you have the person who we say his prayers every day, and you see how desperate that David is when he prays, how vulnerable he is, how much he lets himself out there, right? He speaks about his depression and his fears, his anxieties, his sadnesses, right? All of his biggest doubts he's bringing out to Hashem, and he's saying, Hashem, I need you to help me. Now, interestingly about David, he wasn't just a king. He was a shepherd. He was a musician. He was a singer. He was a warrior. He was a poet. Now, why was he able to do all of these things? Because he had a female soul. Because the quality of the female soul is to be able to take potential and turn it into reality. And this is why David HaMelech was able to do so many things in his life. And this is why Mashiach has to also have a female soul. Because it's going to be his ability to take the potential of himself and also the Jewish people and to make it a reality. This is the quality of the female soul. And how is he going to do this? Rabbi Nachman says that Mashiach, despite the fact that we learn about some great war that's going to take place at the end of time, Mashiach is going to help us win that. He says that Mashiach is not going to have to lift a hand. He's not going to have to lift a hand to win this war for us. He's not going to have to lift a hand to overcome all of his difficulties and enemies. He is simply going to do it all through tefillah. Everything he's going to do is going to be through prayer. He's going to have a difficulty with his boss. He's going to leave the room and he's going to go tell Hashem about it. He's going to go hang out with his wife. His wife is going to rebuke him because he didn't do the dishes. He's going to leave and he's going to cry out to Hashem about it. Everything that he is going to do is going to be about his relationship with Hashem, and that is what he's going to teach all of us. What he's going to teach all of us is how do we cry out to Hashem. Because you see that when did the Jews leave Egypt? The Jews left Egypt only when every single one of them, the Torah says, cried out to Hashem. For 200 years, nothing. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you see the Jews cried out, Hashem hears them, he says to Moshe, go save them. So you'll notice, what was the key to their redemption? They're crying out to Hashem. And what is that? It's female. It's female to express yourself. And this is the key to all of our redemption. This is what we need in order to leave not just Egypt then, but our Egypt now. How many of us have marriage problems, financial problems, difficulties conceiving, difficulties getting married, difficulties finding that job that we want, difficulties finding happiness in our life? How do we be happy? How do we have peace? How do we make money? So the Torah teaches it's all through prayer. It's all through tefillah. And this spark of Mashiach is in each and every one of us. So however Mashiach saves the world is actually how every one of us saves ourselves. How does each of us take ourselves out of our difficulties and our trials and our tribulations and become the person we want to be? Interestingly, growing up, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be actually when I was very little, I wanted to be a dancing rabbi. I guess I'm doing half of that. Thank God I'm not doing the other half. I wanted to do a million things. I wanted to be a teacher, right? And then all of a sudden I'm like in yeshiva and I'm learning like Aleph Bet, right? But interestingly now, I'm doing all of those things. I'm advocating for the Jewish people, like a lawyer. Bezrat Hashem, I'm trying to heal people through the Torah's teachings, right? I'm teaching. I'm still in the role of a social worker. I'm still helping people, right? So all of these things I wanted to do my whole life, they're now all coming to reality through a way that I could have never imagined. And why is that? I 100% attribute all of it to my talking to Hashem for 1 hour every day. It just Hashem, it's not hard for Hashem to make something happen. For us, we feel so limited. We feel like things are impossible. We feel like we can never come out. But this is our own power of imagination. It's very easy for Hashem to do anything. This is part of the exile. I'll tell you something amazing. Rabbi Nachman says, what was the main exile of the Jewish people in Egypt? Why were we there for 200 years? Why couldn't we get out? What was the main thing that we were missing? He says, nobody talked to Hashem. He said for 200 years that we were there, speech was in exile. The quality of the female soul was left. All we had was the male quality, but we didn't have the female quality, and that's why we were enslaved for so long. But as soon as that female aspect opened up, we all left slavery. As soon as we spoke out what we were going through, we were able to leave. So why is this so effective for us? Why should it help so much that I talk about what's going on with me? So I'll tell you a very deep yesod in the Torah. Many people think that when you pray, then Hashem gives you the answer to the problem, right? You pray, He heard you, and now He responds. Okay? So this is assuming that Hashem doesn't know your desires beforehand, and He's waiting for you to do something. And now But the Torah teaches that Hashem doesn't change. So how are we causing changes through our prayers if Hashem never changes? So they teach us in Kabbalah, in Chassidut, that the blessings which we all want in our life, whether it's physical health or mental health or parnasa or peace, whatever it is you're looking for, children. So these blessings are all hovering around us. They're constantly coming down from Hashem, not depending on our prayers. They're always coming down. So how do you receive it? You need a vessel, right? Let's say I took Coca-Cola. I don't know if you guys like Coca-Cola. What drinks are popular these days? I'm not sure. I've been like in a cave for a few years now.
Iced coffee?
What?
Iced coffee?
Iced coffee. Okay, let's say I have iced coffee. And I have a gigantic vat of iced coffee. And you say, hey, can I have a drink? But you have all your clothes on, right? You're leaving to go to work. You want to start your day with your nice iced coffee. Get a little juiced up right before you go to work. So now I come over to you and I pour the whole thing on you. So that's not pleasurable. Nobody enjoys that experience unless you don't plan on going to work that day and you want an excuse out, right? Nobody likes that. So what's the key to drinking the iced coffee in a way that you enjoy? You need a cup. So when you pray, every single time that you pray to Hashem, you're creating a new cup, a new vessel. And that vessel holds the blessings that Hashem wants to give you. So the reason we don't get our prayers answered is because we don't have the vessel for it. Therefore, let's say for instance you want rain, but you don't have a vessel. So the rain might never stop. Is that good? No, it's a flood. It almost destroyed the world. Let's say it never rains. What do you have? You have a drought. It's also not good. You need the exact amount of rain that you need, not more, not less. So you need a vessel for that. When you pray, every letter that comes out of your mouth becomes another vessel. So therefore, the more that you pray to Hashem, the more vessels you have, the more you can hold the blessing you want. Now, if you just want a Snickers bar, so you might only need one prayer for that, because you don't need a very strong vessel for that. But if you want something life-changing, like a partner, or a job, or mental health, or physical health, or to conceive with a child, so that requires very strong vessels, and that requires a lot of prayer. We see something amazing. Sarah, Rachel, Rivka, they all came to this world for one reason alone, to have children. And what was the one thing they struggled their whole life to do? Have children. Now, is Hashem cruel? Why would Hashem bring people to this world just to do something, only to have them struggle their whole life to do that very thing? Doesn't make sense. And the reason is because they didn't know what they wanted. They knew they wanted children, but they didn't know they were going to have Yitzchak. They didn't know they were going to have Yaakov. They didn't know they were going to give birth to all of the Jewish people. Because they didn't know the greatness of the thing that they were praying for, it took them a lifetime's worth of prayers to get to the point that they prayed sufficiently enough to get what they need, to make those vessels, right? Because in the end, they got Yitzchak, they got Yaakov. These are two of the greatest human beings who ever lived. So if they would have known how great that thing was, so you need a prayer that's equally great to the thing that you want. When Hashem created the world, what was his grand plan? What did he want to do? He thought it would be an amazing thing if he would create human beings who would be capable of turning potential into reality. You'll notice that in the first few days of creation, Hashem created everything in potential. But the sages teach that none of it bloomed. The trees didn't bloom. The flowers didn't bloom. Nothing was blooming. Why? Because the Torah teaches that Hashem was waiting for Adam and Chava to come and to pray for these things to grow. Because he wanted to have them have that unbelievable feeling of being creators by praying the world into existence. We see that how did Hashem create the world? He said and it was. He said and it was. He said and it was. How come he didn't think and it was? How come he didn't hear and it was? Right? Why is he saying and it is? So the Ramban, he explains the whole reason why Hashem says it and is because the Torah is teaching that the way that you turn, and the Ramban said this 1,000 years ago, the way that you turn something from potential into reality is to speak it out. So Hashem was speaking out the creation because the creation always existed, but only in potential. And when Hashem decided to make it real, he just said it. He spoke it out. And Hashem's dream was for us to do the same thing. It said about Adam when he was created, he gave him a ruach chaim, a living soul. So the first translation of this by Onkelos 2,000 years ago, what did he say that meant? He said it means that we are a speaking spirit. So what makes us different from animals, from all these things, is not our intelligence, it's not our sophistication. What makes us different at a soul level is we have the ability to speak. Yeah, but they communicate also. So what's the speech that we have that they don't have that's so great? We are able to create with our speech. They're not. We're able to speak creation. Hashem's dream for us that we would be able to create the whole world through speech. But because of the error of Adam, you'll notice what he said to Adam, now you're going to have to toil. Meaning it's not going to be enough that you just pray. You're going to have to physically do something. Originally, this was the dream. What is this land of Israel that Hashem promised Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov that we're all looking forward to? Many people think it's just a physical piece of land the size of New Jersey. Rabbi Nachman teaches that the land of Israel is a concept. The land of Israel is the place where prayers are answered. The land of Israel is the place that you take your prayers and you create reality through your speech. It's like Adam in Gan Eden before the sin. This is what we're all looking forward to getting to a point that we're able to have such an intimate relationship with Hashem that he gives us the ability to speak and it is, just like Hashem did. This was his goal for us. This is what he wants for us. The main reason we don't experience it is because we don't do it, so we don't know. Right? If you, let's say, you had an ability to hang out with Trump, okay, once a week. He wanted your feedback on policies that he wanted to create, things that he wanted to do in the community, things he wanted to do for you and your family. So would you have your cell phone then? No. Would you have things to say to him? Yes. If you had an hour, would you have an hour worth of things to say to him? For sure. And this is a guy who came out of somebody's womb who has like, a toupee and he owns Trump Towers. So this is just a random person. Imagine this is God. God has the ability to do anything. And Hashem is waiting every day for you to communicate with him, to speak to him. I want to tell you a personal example from my life of how to turn potential into reality and to take these lessons practically. How do we take this into our life and to turn potential into reality? So I want to tell you like this. when I became Baal Tshuva, things got very difficult for me before they got better. Many people don't know this. They think that, oh, you're going to be religious. They teach you everything's going to be good, right? You're going to do the mitzvot. Hashem's going to take care of you. Everything's going to be great. You're going to get everything you need. So Rabbi Nachman says the opposite. He says that as soon as a person becomes religious, they start to experience unbelievable obstacles, amazing difficulties in their life. It's actually a sign that you're doing good. However, you still have those difficulties. You still have those obstacles. So he says that in order to overcome those obstacles, you can only do it through this personal prayer. So every day I was praying, not for an hour a day, but 5-10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, half an hour a day, sometimes if I was lucky or something difficult happened to me. But after a couple years of doing this and not seeing results, so I was very downtrodden. And I was going, if I could just speak openly and honestly with you guys, I've had a lot of depressive episodes in my life. Going back till I was about 10 years old, off and on, maybe one a year for a very long time. But the past few years, it got very, very intense. And this was after I became Baal Tshuva. So severe depressive episodes. And I was trying my very, very best to pray to Hashem and to ask for help, not getting any. So one day, about, 2 or 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I got a phone call from my aunt. She told me that my cousin, he was in a marathon, and he passed out, and they realized he was in heart failure. This was a 40-year-old who his whole life had been completely healthy. He was a scientist. He's a very nice guy. I don't know his family. I just know him personally because he used to come to all the family outings and stuff. And because I'm the only person who is religious, so that means that I pray. So my aunt asked me if I can pray for him. I said, of course. So I asked where he was. She told me he was in the Brooklyn hospital. So what happened was, because they saw that he was having heart failure, they realized the only way to make sure that he could survive, at least for now, is to put him into a medically induced coma. So they put him into a coma. The thing is that most of the time you don't come out, and if you do, many times you're like a vegetable. But this was the only way they could make sure that he would survive. This was a person who was healthy his whole entire life. So now at 40 years old, he has a girlfriend he's been serious with for a long time. He has a serious job, right? And now his life is up in the air. So I asked for the address to the place where he was. It was in Brooklyn. She told me. I called my boss the next day. I said, I'm not coming into work. I just started teaching at this time. I was teaching teenagers in J-Wave. They're like 16-year-old Bukharians from the community, usually come from secular or traditional backgrounds. I said, I'm not going to come into work. I said, I'm not going to come in to learn. I'm going to visit my cousin. He's in a coma. Okay, so my boss said, fine, go ahead. So I'm driving there. And this was in the middle of my very, very, very deep depression. So by the time I got there, I was also going through all my own stuff. I sat in my car for half an hour praying to Hashem, Hashem, help me to have the words to say to help this person. At least, if not for me, at least for him. Something. I walk out of the car. I'm walking into the hospital. I get a text from my aunt saying, hey, David, I don't know if you asked me for the address because you want to go visit, but they don't want visitors. So now I'm already like the crazy religious cousin. I have the white and black. I'm about to walk into the hospital. They don't know me, right? Only the cousin knows me. They've never met me before. So now I'm about to walk in and ask if I can pray, right? And they're experiencing unbelievable trauma. They have no idea what's going to turn out with this. And I said, okay, that's fine, but just so you know, I literally drove an hour to get to Brooklyn. I'm walking into the hospital right now. So she said, wow, if you're already walking in, so why don't you call and ask if you can come? So I called the brother. The brother doesn't know me. He sounded hesitant. He said, let me ask my mom. I don't know his mother either. She said, sure. And I was like petrified at this point. I'm walking into the hospital. I walk up to the room and I see him. He looks terrible. Really, really, really bad. They all look like they've been crying for hours and hours on end. Thank you. My lips are dry. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. I asked how he was. They told me. I asked if I can pray for him. They said sure. So I took up Tehillim, right? We talked about King David. All of his Hippodedu sessions are in this book. There is a segula to say the person's age plus one. So he was 40. He's turning 41. It was also good for you guys. The Baal Shem Tov, he says that everybody should say their own every day. So if you're 29 years old, you would say number 30 until you turn 30, then you say 31 every day. So he's 40, so I started to say 41. So I don't know Tehillim that well, and I'm starting to go through it, and it's saying that on the day that you visit the person in the hospital and he's on his deathbed, Hashem is going to save him. And I started to get the chills. You know, like, what are the chances that this is the Tehillim that's for his age and whatever? It was weird. So I put the book down and I started to do, even though there were people around, my own little mini Hibodedut session in the hospital for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, half an hour. It was the most heartfelt prayer I ever had. I was crying like a baby halfway through. And I'll just tell you a little bit what I said. I said to Hashem that I've been religious, quote unquote, now for a few years. I've lost a lot of relationships because of it. My health has declined unbelievably. I'm in the worst state mentally that I've ever been in my life. I'm praying to you every single day for help. You're not helping me. I said, this person doesn't even know you exist. He's 40 years old. He's Jewish. He has no idea that you're here. And now, in the worst way possible, you're going to take him from his family. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I said, I know the doctors don't save. And the nurses don't save. And these machines don't save. Only you save. And I said to Hashem, I'm not leaving the hospital until you wake him up. I said, that's it. You know, how long can a person be religious? You know, wear black and white for and go to shul 3 times a day and learn Torah, and Hashem never answers your prayers. How long can you do that for? Especially as a Baal Tshuva, nobody in your family is religious, your friends aren't religious, your life was pretty good before, you used to go to parties and to clubs and do drugs, and like, that wasn't so bad. And now, you know, I'm restricting myself to all of these things, and now I'm trying to pour my heart at Hashem, and nothing's happening. I can go back, right? I wasn't fulfilled, I wasn't happy, but it was something. I got some gratification, I got something. Now I'm getting nothing. I said, Hashem, I'm not leaving the hospital until he wakes up. I think I was just so juiced up from the prayer, I was just saying things that I normally wouldn't be saying. So, you know, like when you have a nice coffee and you just get it. So it was one of those. By the time I opened my eyes and I stopped praying, I turned around, and he was exactly the same, laying there. The family saw me, and their eyes were like widened. I said, what's going on? They said, did you see Mikhail? I said, no, what? They said his eyes opened. So I didn't believe it, right? My grandfather was in a coma when I was a kid. He also was twitching and different types of things in the coma. It didn't mean anything. He didn't make it. So I didn't think much of it. But all of a sudden, the machines in the room started going off. All the machines in the room started going off. All the nurses start running in. All the doctors start coming in. And now I feel really, really uncomfortable. And I feel like crawling out of my skin, and I want to run out of the room. But I was so juiced up from my prayer, I told the family, I don't know if you believe in God or you don't believe in God. I told them that if you do not give up on your son, on your brother, on your boyfriend, and you pray for him and you believe he's going to walk out of here, he's going to walk out of here with you. I promise. And I walked out of the room. I was like, what did I just say to these people? But because I made this promise to Hashem that he needs to get up, otherwise I'm not leaving the hospital, so I couldn't leave. So I went to the Bikur Cholim room, and I continued to say Tehillim for him for a half an hour, an hour and a half, 2 hours, waiting for some type of news. And now J-Wave is about to start, and I have to teach these kids. And I said to myself, you know, it's one thing for me to have this outing with Hashem, but it's not fair to people who they need me, and they get inspiration from what we talk about. So I need to go home. So after a few hours of me praying, I'm leaving the hospital, and I get a phone call from my aunt. And my aunt tells me, David, thank you so much. I said, for what? They said, your cousin Mikhail, he's up. The doctors are speaking to him. He woke up. So you should know that he's completely, perfectly healthy. He has no brain damage whatsoever. The doctors admitted afterwards they didn't really think he was going to make it. They are doing research on him for some type of medical center in Boston, I think, to try and figure out how he survived. And he's attending yearly dinners for miracle survivors of traumatic events. Nobody in the room was affected. And the whole reason I had prayed so intensely was so that other people could know that you really exist. And in the end, I realized it was for me. because I had struggled so much for so many years, because I poured my heart out, because I was so open and honest and genuine, and I had such a real prayer. So because of that, the potential dream or desire that I had at that moment became a reality. And that is not something which is only supposed to happen once in a while. Hashem wants to do that all the time for us. Sorry. Hashem wants to do this all the time for us. But we never get to experience that because we never let go. We never give ourselves up. We never let ourselves feel vulnerable. We never give ourselves up completely, or we don't feel the inspiration, or we don't feel that our back is up against the wall, but it always is. You know, the Gemara teaches that every single one of us is a world. If you ever notice that in the world you have, I don't know, like 65% water and 35% land, your body's also like that. You have 35% flesh and bones, and you have 65% water. You are a world in and of yourself. So when Hashem created the world and He created it through speech, you do the same thing. We don't know this because we don't do it. So one of the things that I want to practically bring down from this lesson is to teach you and to show you that that was not something special about me. That was not something that nobody else can do. That's actually something that many people experience when they talk to Hashem every day. So one of the main practical ways to bring this teachings and this class into your life is to take a little bit of time out of your day every day and to create a relationship with Hashem and talk to Hashem. This isn't about being religious. This isn't about dressing up tzniut. This isn't about trying to put on a show. This isn't about anything except for trying to have a real relationship with Hashem. And even more than that, that those prayers that you have, those are the vessels which are going to bring down your dreams, which are going to bring things that you need in your life. You know, Rabbi Nachman says, when you see a person who suffers, why do you see that? You think you just happen to be seeing it. You don't happen to be seeing it. Hashem only shows it to you because you are supposed to do something about it. Well, what can I do about the person who's sick? What can I do about the person who's struggling financially? What can I do about the poor person who's homeless and on the street and I see him every day and he's in the freezing cold and his health is in shambles, right? What am I supposed to do about that? And the answer is pray. So you'd be like, oh, just pray? Not just pray, just pray. Prayer is the most impactful, the deepest, the biggest koach that every Jew has, and specifically women. It's something that comes naturally to it. So it's chaval if you don't take this koach that Hashem gave you and bring it into reality. You know, let's say for instance you want to get married. You haven't gotten married yet. So now all of a sudden a guy happens to come, you get married. Okay, good. How much are you going to appreciate that? A little bit. What if every day you asked Hashem for a great marriage partner? Every day you took 10 minutes out of your day, you said, Hashem, please help me to get married to a good guy. Help me to get married to a good guy. Someone who wants to have a family, someone who's going to take care of me, someone who understands me, someone who's funny, someone who, if he's not funny, at least laughs at my jokes, you know. Whatever it is, 10 minutes every day, and then all of a sudden there's a guy who does all of that. How much are you going to appreciate what Hashem did for you? How close are you going to feel to Hashem because of that? Part of the reason why Hashem doesn't give us these things is not because He doesn't want to. He wants to. It's just that we're not going to be able to appreciate how good that is because we've never asked for it, because we're not talking to Hashem about it. So, Hibodedut, as different than the Amidah, is taking time out of your day, every day, for a certain period of time, right? He suggests an hour. This is very hard in the beginning. It took me years of doing 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes before it increased. So I would just say, just any amount of time, but every day. Take time and talk to Hashem about whatever you want. The Amidah is, again, it's about collective things that we need to pray for. They're important. But what about your needs? What about your desires? What about your dreams? Hashem cares about those things, right? It said about Yosef, when his brothers were jealous of him, and they were making fun of him after he had his dreams. So it said, let's see what happens to his dreams. So the way that it reads that the brothers are mocking him. But Rashi actually explains that it was Hashem saying, let's see what happens to Yosef's dream. Meaning, I'm going to take care of it. And Yosef is talking to me every day. They said that when Yosef was in jail for 12 years, what made him different than, let's say, anybody else? They said, throughout the whole time that he was there, he didn't stop talking to Hashem. The whole time he was there, he didn't stop talking to Hashem. And in the end, he left because of that. Because then they came over to him and they said, hey, you're different, you're interesting, you're Ivri, you're Jewish. And they told them about their difficulties. And then he ended up interpreting it. He left. He became the viceroy of Egypt. And then he saved all the Jewish people. Another instance of speech saving. So in our life, to be able to reach peace for ourselves, inner peace, to have money, to have a husband, to have your dreams be met, to be fulfilled in your life, to be the person that you always wanted to be. The key is not far from you. It's not distant. It's not in the future. And it's not hard. It's simply to open your mouth. We say, Poteach yadecha, right? The Sephardim. Poteach yadecha, umasbir laho chai ratzon. We all do it together. What does it mean? Open up your hands, I'm going to satiate you. We say all the time, Hashem says, open up your mouth and I'm going to fill it. Hashem desperately wants to answer your prayers, but He's waiting for you to speak to Him because He wants a relationship with you. The point of you being here is not to have a certain job on 47th Street. Now maybe that's part of your thing, right? That's part of the reason why you're here, or that's going to give you sustenance or parnasa. Okay, good. But you're here for one reason. It's to have a relationship with Hashem. The whole reason that you get your husband is because he's supposed to bring you closer to Hashem. The reason why you have your kids is because your kids are supposed to bring you close to Hashem. The reason why you have your health problems and you have your difficulties and you have your challenges is because those are the exact challenges that you need to bring you closer to Hashem. But that only happens when you talk. So we went back to the beginning. What was the beginning of the class? That the redemption of the Jewish people only comes in the merit of the Jewish woman. What about the Jewish woman? Tefillah, speech. By talking to Hashem, by praying for the things that you want, you will turn it into a reality. If, for instance, every day, just on a practical level, let's say that you really want this job, okay? Every day, you take 5-10 minutes every day and you say to Hashem, Hashem, help me to be successful in this today. Help me to learn today what I need to learn in order to succeed. Help the person who's going to give me the interview, give me that job. Help it that if it's not good for me, I don't get it from that person, I get it from another person. Very honest, simple, genuine conversation. You do this every day, you're going to see those prayers get answered. Right? I'll tell you, for instance, there's a person in this class, I'm not going to say who it is. They have a sibling. And this person is somebody who is my good friend, and he's had trouble connecting to Hashem. He's had trouble with his life and his family, X, Y, and Z. And we connected a lot. We have a lot in common. He didn't show up to my classes for a long time. And I was trying to call him every day. He wasn't picking up. I was asking people about him. And instead of doing all of that, I said, you know what? That's it. It's much more effective for me to just ask Hashem. So every day in my Hibodedut that I took that hour out, I was saying, Hashem, please help me to connect to this person. Help me to help this person. Show me this person's interested. Help this person to also have a path back to you, just like you gave me. I'm no better than him, right? I didn't do anything more important than him. I'm no different than him. You just gave me a chance. Give him a chance also. As soon as I said this prayer, I walked out of my yeshiva and he was there with Benny in the car. For no reason. For seemingly no reason. And I know it was simply because I asked Hashem right before. These things happen to me almost every day. Things happen to Benny all the time. And it has nothing to do with Benny's payot, even though they're very nice. It's very, very simple. Hashem wants a relationship with you, right? When you're married to somebody and you don't speak to them, it's not a relationship. Hashem wants to connect to you. That's why you exist. So when you do that, Hashem is more than happy to give you the things that you want because He just wants you to know they come from Him so that you love Him, so that you connect to Him, so that you believe in Him, so that you have a good life. So Bezrat Hashem, you guys should have an amazing life. I'm hoping that we can do this every week moving forward. Hopefully you guys can bring your friends. And if you have any questions now about the lesson or about practically how to bring this into your life, anything about me, this is your time to ask. Go ahead.
In your Hibodedut, is there like a specific, I don't even want to say like equation or formula, but sometimes when you talk about, you talk about saying that, you shove off the praise, is is there like a method?
Sorry. I'm joking. Hashem, please. Oh, see? He answers. You see, I'm telling you. It really works. Unbelievable. So like this. A lot of the guys ask me the same thing. In the beginning, it's hard to kind of get started. I've heard about experiences. I feel like that guy, what's his name? From the it's hard to open up. You know, I've heard people tell me like, wow, I went alone for an hour. I didn't say anything. I was just like sitting in front of a tree and I had no idea what I was doing. So there is a formula. Ultimately, Rav Nachman says, the best way is that you're speaking to Hashem like you're speaking to your best friend. However, let's say you had your girlfriends over and you were just opening up your heart out, and this girlfriend that you had happened to have the answers to all your problems. She had your husband, she had your boyfriend, she had your money that you need, she had your health that you need, she had your whatever. She had it. Right? She just needs you to ask her to convey it to her. So ultimately, best tipo to do it is open, genuine, spontaneous dialogue. But until you get to that point, there is a formula that we suggest. So it's three-pronged. The way it starts is with gratitude, saying thank you. There's many deep reasons for why this is effective, but on a very simple level, it's a nature of the human being because of his Yetzer Hara to focus on the negative in his life. So every day, you may see things that you wanted, let's say weeks ago, they're happening for you now, but you don't take account of them, even though you asked for them before and you were looking forward to them. But now that they happened, you don't think about them. But all the things that you don't have are constantly on your mind. So therefore, you don't realize how much Hashem is already doing for you. Part of what gives you confidence to ask Hashem for more of what you really need is by realizing already what He's done for you. So usually, let's say you did 15 minutes. So the first 5 minutes is thanking Hashem for everything in your life. Everything. Not just the big things, also the small things. Right? Thank you, Hashem, that I have a hot shower. Thank you, Hashem, that I can be in my shower for 20 minutes in America. If you've ever gone to Israel, you can't go for more than 5 minutes. So when you do it here, wow, this is amazing. But you only felt good that one day that you came back. You never thought about it again. Right? How about the fact that if you're hungry, you get a sandwich, you go to Holy Schnitzel, you're good to go. Right? If you visit a third world country, you have to go to the flea market, and there's a reason it's called the flea market, because all their food is covered in flies. I was there, I know. It's disgusting, right? So you don't have that. You can get any sandwich you want, any variation, any sauce. When is the last time that you thanked Hashem that you live in a first world country? It's not by chance. Everything is Hashem. So this is all something we should say thank you for. Every day I say thank you. Thank you, Hashem, that I go to the bathroom and I'm not in pain afterwards. Thank you, Hashem, that I can see, right? I wear contacts. So let's say I was born 3,000 years ago. So there's a good chance when they saw that I couldn't see, they would have just like threw me into a pit of fire. That would have been the end of my life. Right? They would have sacrificed me to the gods. But now that I live in this generation at this time, Hashem had rachamim on me. He saw I wasn't going to have good vision. And I'm living in a time that I can have glasses, and it's no issue whatsoever. But it's a big issue not to be able to see. It's like being blind. I'm literally blind without my glasses, without my contacts. So I thank Hashem every day that I can see, and I mean it. You have all of these things in your life. Everything. You don't need to wait until something happens to you, right? And one of the big chidushim, right, the novelties that Rav Nachman says, is you should thank Hashem for your problems themselves. Because the problems themselves are actually the key to what you want in your life. All of the things that you really want in your life, those problems are bringing you there. But they only bring you there when you turn your problems into prayers. That was like a Gedalia Fencer line. You turn your problems into prayers, okay? This is what we need to do. The problems themselves are not meant to last. Hashem doesn't want you to sit in the problem. He wants it to be a source of motivation for you to turn that problem into prayer. So this is thanking. Then from thanking, we talk about the things that we're struggling with, right? I'm struggling with overeating. I'm struggling with speaking negatively about other people. I'm struggling with seeing people in a negative light and always judging people unfavorably. Whatever the things that you struggle with, that's like the next 5 minutes. And then the last 5 minutes is whatever you want. Anything. And Rav Nachman says this is not just the big stuff. It's not just I'm praying for Mashiach, I'm praying for the Beit HaMikdash. No. Hashem, help me. I have a missing button today from work. My button fell out of my dress. I need a new button. Rav Nachman says, you're crazy if you don't pray to Hashem for that button. Right? And his student came to him and they said to him, yeah, but I'm just going to go to the store and get the button. What do I need to pray to Hashem for? And he said, how do you know the store is going to have that button? He was serious. Right? We take all of these things for granted and we don't realize everything is Hashem. Everything is Hashem and everybody is his messenger. So this is the formula, very, very simply. Gratitude, struggles, whatever you need. So let's say you have 15 minutes, 5, 5, 5. The truth is, when you start to thank and you do it genuinely and you're really trying and you're not rushing to move somewhere, like you gave yourself in a lot of time, you put it in your calendar like a business appointment, I'm taking out 20 minutes today to talk to Hashem, right? So you'll notice that after 5 real minutes of it, 5 minutes is not enough, right? If you do a real good session of thank you, that could usually last you the whole hour. You're going to have to move on. You're going to have to push yourself to move on to the next thing. And I'm not saying this is a person who gets everything that I want. I'm saying this is as like one of us, that we all go through all the things that we're going through. Everybody has a lot to be thankful for. That's part of Hashem helping you, is realizing that. Any other questions?
When do you do it, like in the morning or at night?
So Rav Nachman suggests to do it in the morning before like everybody gets up. Just, it's not a specific, like it's not like you have to do it by a certain point. It's about, since not everybody's up, I don't know if you ever gotten up early before everybody gets up. There's like a peacefulness about the fact that everybody's sleeping. There's something that feels psychologically like I don't have pressure on me right now because the world is asleep. So there's actually a very deep spiritual reason for this. We don't have time to go into it right now. So he says the best way to do it is to do this right before like everybody gets up. But anytime works. Anytime works. The main thing is that you're able to talk out loud. You're not whispering, you're talking or screaming at the top of your lungs or crying, whatever it is that you want to do, it's all good. But you need to feel completely comfortable to do it. So how can you do that? You need to be utterly alone. That's why it's called hibodedut, to be completely alone. Rav Nachman suggests to go into the fields, to go into a forest, right? If you don't have that accessible to you or it's not convenient for you, I do it in my car all the time. Right? Usually I'm good. Sometimes a guy sees me and he sees that I'm crying and I'm screaming. He knocks on the window and asks me if everything's okay. I say, yeah, everything's great. What's wrong? I'm just having the best prayer of my life. He goes, okay, close the door and I continue. But the main thing is just that you have the time and it's consistent. That every day you take this time and you don't miss it, no matter what. Because this is not going to come to you. It's not like, if my circumstances come out right and I have time in my day, you're not going to have time in your day to do this because Rav Nachman says it's the greatest thing in the world. And therefore, whatever is great spiritually, you're going to have obstacles to it. So the greater something is, the more obstacles you're going to have to it. So you have to be very, very insistent to make sure you take that time. Otherwise, your world will happen and you won't have time. Any other suggestions or questions? Yeah.
So let's say you're praying, right? You're saying you get to the part where you ask for forgiveness, let's say a negative attribute or a negative midah.
Okay.
And you're consistent, you're saying the prayer every day. The question is, how does the change exactly come about? Does Hashem sort of like get rid of your negative quality right away, or he lessens your Yetzer Hara? Like, I don't get it.
How does it happen?
Yeah.
So that's exactly what
Because
happens.
it doesn't happen.
No. So this is actually what happens, okay? When you ask Hashem you tell Hashem that you're struggling in this area and you ask Hashem for help in that area, he is going to give you the strength to overcome it, right? The Torah teaches that the Yetzer Hara was created in a way that it's stronger than you. So all your negative inclinations, whether it's to overeat, whether it's to overdrink, whether it's to engage in too much pleasure, whether it's to engage too much Netflix and chill, whatever it is that you're doing, right? And you can't hold yourself back because I had a day where it was crazy today and I just need to relax and I need to do my thing, even though tomorrow I'm going to feel terrible about myself about in the morning and I'm going to do it all over again. So the reason why you're struggling is not because there's anything wrong with you. Right, you're going to beat yourself up that it's your fault, but it's not your fault. And this is also part of the reason you don't have the strength to overcome, because you're not happy, right? The reason why you're struggling to overcome is because you're not including Hashem in the equation. Hashem gives us things that are too much for us to bear on our own, so that we ask Him for help. And through asking Him for help, He lifts us up and over. We can't do it without that. So what you'll notice, like let's say for instance, me right now, I'm working on my eating. I may not look like it, but I have an extreme taiva for food. I always had like an oral fixation. When I was a little kid, I used to always put the blanket on my mouth. My brother used to beat me up because he couldn't take it. He said it was disgusting. But I always had to have the blanket on my mouth. I have a very, very deep oral fixation. It's probably why I talk all the time. Yeah, what's it? Oh, okay. So I have that. But when it comes to food, we learn spiritually that overeating is not just an issue in terms of weight, it's also an issue in terms of connection to Hashem. It diminishes the intensity or the sensitivity that you have to spiritual things is overeating. So it's very hard for me not to. So I'm working on it. But when I don't talk to Hashem, I can't stop myself. But you can try this out for yourself. If right before you start eating, you say Hashem and you mean it, Hashem, help me only to eat what I need and not more than that. You'll see, it will work. It's just going to work. It'll work. But you have to mean it. You can't say like, Hashem, help me if you want to. If I want to, I don't know if I want to. The sandwich looks pretty good, You have to really want it and you have to mean it. If you want it and you'll mean it, you'll see that over time, from you doing the hibodedut, Rav Nachman says the greatest benefit is something called bitul. Bitul means nullification. What is that? It's nullification of all of those negativities. Meaning that over time of you doing this every day, genuinely from your heart, these things automatically go into a state of bitul. It's like you yourself are a seed and you have a casing around you, and when you go into the ground, right, so then the outside comes off, the husk comes off, and the seed grows. So too, like you're like the seed, and your desires and all those things that are holding you back are that when you go into the ground, that's like your hibodedut. And that ground or that hibodedut or that feminine quality of speech that then removes the husk, and then what you're left with is just the thing that you want. So it takes a lot of fortitude, it takes a lot of consistency, and being genuine, and the speech has to come out. I can't tell you this enough. You can't say it in a way that you don't hear yourself. You can't whisper it. It's not the Amidah. You need to hear yourself. Anybody else?
I have a last question. You mentioned it's not related to hibodedut, but the males, they have the female soul. Does it also come the opposite? That the female has the male soul?
Yes, and every one of us has both aspects. And actually what brings us to a quality of contentment in our life, or let's say a state of peace, is actually when we harmonize both of these aspects. Every one of us has a male aspect, which is the potential aspect of our soul. Every one of us has a female aspect, which is the realized aspect of our soul. So we all have both of these. We have to bring a harmony to these two things. And they're completely contradictory, right? The seed is completely contradictory to the ground. The seed is completely contradictory to the egg. And yet there is a harmony that comes from them that's greater than either of them on their own. This is part of the reason why it's so hard to have Shalom Bayit. Because truthfully, men and women are very different. Their roots of their souls are very different. They don't just think differently because they have different brains. Their souls are rooted in different parts of the spiritual world. And so when they come together, you need an unbelievable amount of help from Hashem to make peace between the two. Peace is not when there's no fighting. Peace is when you have two completely separate entities that come together and they forge a unity that's greater than either on their own. This is marriage. And this is also what you have to find within yourself. Speech is the thing that links up the male and the female part of your soul. It's what unifies them, and what gives you wholeness. Okay, guys, thank you so much. Have a great week. B'ezrat Hashem, I'll see you next Sunday. And I guess you could turn the phone.